The most effective deceptions usually don't rely on outright lies. Instead, they operate on a much subtler level, presenting a highly selective, carefully cropped version of the truth. In logic, this specific tactic has a formal name. It is known as the misleading accent fallacy. This happens when an arguer directs you towards an unwarranted conclusion by doing one of two things: applying an unusual verbal emphasis to a specific word, or improperly omitting crucial context. To understand why this breaks down a logical argument, we have to look at a standard called the acceptability criterion. This is a foundational rule for any legitimate debate. It states that for an argument to be valid, the evidence, or the premises supporting it, must be entirely acceptable and presented whole. By lifting words out of their original context or applying a false emphasis, an arguer fractures that premise. Any conclusion built on that fractured foundation remains structurally unsound and invalid. We see this play out constantly at a mass media scale. News broadcasts, operating under tight deadlines and limited airtime, are prime environments for this kind of contextual omission. Consider a real-world example from the 1996 elections. A major network reported that Bill Clinton's presidential campaign had accepted over $10 million in improperly reported campaign contributions. That specific claim was entirely accurate. The money was accepted, and it was improperly reported. That factual accuracy is exactly why the trap works so well. This chart shows how the data was originally presented, a reported $10 million for the Clinton campaign. What the network omitted was the macro context. The Bob Dole campaign had accepted more than $17 million in similar funds. By withholding this comparative data, the broadcast placed a misleading accent on a partial story. They weaponized an omission. The broadcast steered the audience toward a highly skewed, one-sided conclusion without ever having to utter a technical lie. These same mechanics operate in our daily conversations, often through the physical lever of vocal emphasis. Imagine a frustrated father complaining about the difficulties of raising his 3 kids. He singles out his oldest daughter and says, "She won't listen to me," placing a hard, distinct vocal stress on the word she. Human psychology immediately kicks in. The listener reflexively assumes an unstated, contrasting conclusion that the father's other children do listen to him. If that's not true, the father has misled the listener just by leaning on a single syllable. This leads to a related interpersonal trap, the danger of the dropped condition. Let's say a college student receives a message relayed by her roommate. The roommate says the professor called and stated he will no longer accept her paper. What the roommate carelessly left out was a critical piece of information, the conditional clause, if she doesn't turn it in today. Dropping that single if clause transforms a standard everyday deadline into a sentence of inescapable academic failure. The human brain abhors a vacuum. Whether a communicator uses heavy vocal stress or crops a sentence in half, our minds will automatically fill in the missing context with false assumptions. Knowing the mechanics behind misdirection gives us tools to actively dismantle it in our daily lives. Step 1 is to identify the accent. Listen closely to pinpoint the exact word carrying improper weight, or spot the cropped phrase that feels like it is missing the other half of the story. Step 2 is to demand context. Force the arguer to supply the missing pieces by directly asking for clarification of the larger picture. You have to apply this to the media you read too. Be incredibly cautious about drawing conclusions from news headlines alone. By their very nature, titles are designed to be misleading accents, prioritizing attention over accuracy. The best defense remains the most straightforward. When uncertain, ask. It is always better to act like a skeptic, risk asking an obvious question, and get the full story, than to allow someone's selective truth to lead you to an unwarranted conclusion.